Standpoint. I am Precious Amayu. Issues are rife in the country today. There are issues arising from the presidential election and also issues arising from the Supreme Court ruling yesterday on the Naira scarcity. Those are some of the issues we will be looking at today on Standpoint. We know that everyone has been talking. Will the federal government abide by the Supreme Court ruling? And if not, how do you get the federal government and the CBN to abide by that ruling? And those are some of the issues we're looking at. And also, like I said earlier, matters arising from the presidential election. We'll take a break now. And when we return, we'll start with our very first conversation. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Now, on Saturday, February the 25th, Nigerians went to the polls to vote their preferred candidate. An election that had about four candidates. It's been seen as the top contenders in that presidential election. But after several hours, that election particularly spilled into Sunday. But on Wednesday morning at about 4 a.m., INEC declared the APC presidential candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as the winner of that election. And according to the INEC chairman, he satisfied the requirements of the law. 11 hours later, at about 3 p.m. that same day on Wednesday, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu was presented with his certificate of return, along with his vice presidential candidate, Kashim Shettima, who was also presented with his certificate of return. But this election has not been without its controversies. The major opposition parties, the PDP and the Labour Party, say they will seek redress in court. They believe that there were discrepancies in this particular election, but that remains to be seen how the ruling that the court will give. But we will speak to the advisor, Media and Public Affairs, APC Presidential Campaign Council. He will be responding to some of these issues and what the Asiwaju presidency is going to look like. We're joined by Mr. Dele Alake. Good to have you join us.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
All right, so I want to start by playing because he gave Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is now the president-elect, gave two different speeches. One of them was the acceptance speech at the Presidential Campaign Council headquarters. And then the other was at ICC while he was receiving his certificate of return. I want to play particularly a clip from the speech he gave at the ICC.
We must join hands in this common endeavor to push the nation through. In a phrase, I'm asking you to work with me. I may be the president in an election, but I need you more importantly. Nigeria needs you a lot more than just one person. My heart, my door are open to you. I ask you to come in so that we may begin the task of rebuilding our national home together, day by day, brick by brick. Where there is poverty, let us create prosperity and jobs. Where there is hunger, let us feed the people, chasing the hunger from our midst. Where there is no scarcity, let us rediscover the abundance. Where there's brutality, we may replace it with brotherhood. Where there's violence, stock the land, we may establish peace. Where others have erected temples to hatred and bias, we may reconstruct permanent monuments to compassion and abiding affection. History will record that this day, as the moment when I officially stood before you as a president-elect.
Right, so that is the president-elect, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, speaking there at the ICC while receiving his certificate of return. But let me ask you, Mr. Alake, he has been receiving congratulatory message from across the aisle. We've seen members of other political parties also congratulating him as well, and people say maybe probably that speaks for the kind of person he is, being able to reach across the aisle. But how magnanimous will he be in victory?
Thank you for the question. You heard him yourself. He has said it all. His heart, his door are open to all. That is a very symbolic statement. It is an endearing statement. It's an inviting statement. It's a statement that encapsulates all the conciliatory moves and efforts and inclinations and predisposition of this man. Not just now. In fact, he's so adept at forgiving. And you and I know, and I'm sure many Nigerians who are political watchers and analysts know that this is a man that harbors no grudge, no hatred, no animosity. If even we make jokes with him that if someone stabs him in the back and faces him, he embraces the person. That's the man he is. So it's not a fluke. What he's saying is not just happenstance. He has practiced it. He's preaching it because he's going to practice it. He is a very, very magnanimous man in defeat. How much more in victory? He's a very honorable man. And this has been amply demonstrated, as I keep saying. A few weeks ago, or even 2 weeks ago, or about a week ago, who would have believed that an Asiwaju, as a political colossus that he is, would lose his own election in Lagos State? Of course, that was unthinkable. Nobody could have believed it. However, it did happen. We are still studying a lot of things about that particular election. But it did happen. And have you heard him making a whimper in protest, gallivanting all over the place and calling for arms, for fire and brimstone, that the nation should shut down? He has taken it in his stride as a true Democrat that he is. And what more eloquent testimony to the magnanimity of the man do you require? None. He is going to embrace all and sundry, and that has always been his political hallmark anyway. Cast your mind back. How many people in the history of this country has governed their states and invited people of other ethnic affiliations into their cabinets as much as Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu? Not just the cabinet. Other people across religious, economic class, political affiliation, social strata, all across board have been embraced by him, and they are strewn all over the political landscape and the administrative space of Lagos State. So how much more? You can imagine what that kind of a man will do on a bigger and cleaner canvas that is Nigeria. I have no doubts in my mind because I've seen him do all of these things, not just because we've read or heard, preachments and stuff like that. I have personally witnessed all of these things. And I believe sincerely that he's going to be one of the most magnanimous presidents that we've ever seen in this area.
We understand that a committee was set up to reach out to the two major political parties, Labour Party and the PDP. Confirm to us, how true is that?
I cannot confirm.
There was not such committee set up, or that you cannot confirm at this moment?
I cannot confirm. I didn't say there wasn't any such committee. Listen to me. I didn't say there wasn't any such committee. I said I cannot confirm. I'm an information person. I do not confirm what I'm not aware of or what I do not have the authority to confirm. Right? However, I did say in my opening remarks that even the speech, the video clip you played of his speech, there are conciliatory statements there. Right? However, that shows you that the man is really set for reconciliation to whoever is eager to come in. And he did say that his heart and door are open. Well, that's more than enough, demonstration of the predisposition to conciliation and conciliatory moves. So, even with or without committee, he has already shown that he is ready for reconciliation. However, with the committee or not, I also believe fervently that some of the people who have gone to court or who have claimed that they are going to court should be allowed to go to court. Because we are Democrats. We cannot stop anybody from going to court. And we also would not want to be seen as obstructing justice through any means at all. Now, they are going to court may or may not actually prejudice any conciliatory moves. We do not think it should. However, whoever decides to go to court is free to do so because election is a democratic process. And going to court by any aggrieved party is part of the electoral process. Just as we clamored for the completion of the release of the results by INEC, which INEC did, and we said that was a process which should be completed. Now, going to court by any aggrieved person is also part of that process. It's a legitimate process. And we are not going to do anything or make any moves that would appear as if we are obstructing or we intend to obstruct that process or justice. No, we wouldn't. So it is even a good thing. At our press conference yesterday, I did say that we welcome the idea of aggrieved parties going to court, seeking redress in the judiciary. And we applaud whoever takes such a step, rather than gangsterism on the streets, raising protests and threatening fire and brimstone, threatening that the country will be shut down simply because somebody who was ill-equipped, ill-prepared for the elections, to win the elections, because that person is losing. So therefore, the nation should shut down? No. So we applaud and welcome any moves towards seeking redress in the judiciary, because that is the way to go.
Mr. Alake, I know you're already addressing the issue of going to court, but I wanted to address specifically the fact that an Abuja appeal court on Friday granted the candidates of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, and PDP, Atiku Abubakar, leave to access some INEC-sensitive materials used for the presidential election. How do you respond to that? And how confident are you that, look, even going through this particular materials...
There's nothing to respond to there. There's nothing to respond to there. It's part of the judicial process. They are free, they are at liberty to ask the court to do anything that if the court feels, that they are justified or there is a point or a case to be made or whatever, that is left to the judiciary to decide. However,
but Mr. Alake, I was going to ask you in addition,
going to court to ask for the servers or for the...
I was going to ask you how confident are you that
now, going to
no matter
the
how
court,
much they sift through those materials, you are sure that your party's victory will stand?
Of course we are sure. In fact, let me tell you, they are asking for the beavers or for the server or for whatever. Is going to open a Pandora's box against them. Because we are beginning to see a lot of evidences that are being gathered by our legal team, evidences of monumental fraud, particularly in the so-called areas that Labour Party won. 90%, 95%, 96% in the southeast. Now, evidences are now coming out in streams and in droves, showing that proper elections did not take place. Proper voting did not take place in so many wards, in so many polling centers. And some of the electoral officers are coming out now, their videos are out, showing that election did not take place in so many of those stations, whereas results were posted and sent to Abuja by the local people there. Some of the officials were threatened. The INEC officials were intimidated, blackmailed, and threatened. Just yesterday, we showed you at our press conference a woman in Anambra whose house was burnt because she is a candidate, or she was a candidate of the APC for the House of Representatives. We showed that to you at our press conference yesterday, and she narrated her story. Her house was razed to the ground, her family chased out, simply because she belonged to APC. And none of them were allowed to vote in so many polling stations. A lot of these things are coming out. So we welcome them. We believe that that is the way to go. Even in Lagos, a lot of things are coming out in the so-called areas. For instance, even here, I have one evidence, which I'm not going to show yet, but I'm just going to tell you about several forms signed, filled by some electoral National Youth Corps officers, people that were charged with the electioneering process there, with the voting. They crossed out numbers, figures, originally assigned to APC. Even in Lagos, in so many local governments, we've discovered all of these things. And then they changed some of the figures for ALP, Labour Party. So if they're asking for beavers or whatever, it's going to boomerang against them. So we welcome them. It's not going to affect our own strength in our strongholds. Don't forget that this election, which they are trying to discredit, is being the best so far in this political dispensation since 1999. There's no election that Obasanjo conducted, 2003 and 2007, that anybody could point at. Even he himself, in his good conscience, did not agree that it was free and fair. And when he was queried about it, he said, there is no perfect election anywhere in the world. I played the tape at our press conference 2 days ago, where he said that in the US. So this has been the best election, the freest and fairest since 1999. Why do I say so? The results have shown it. There have been upsets where hitherto upsets were unthinkable. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu lost in his own base of Lagos. The sitting president, Muhammadu Buhari, lost his own Katsina state to PDP.
You're speaking to the shift.
Even a sitting governor
if I may just quickly jump in, apologies for interrupting you.
Please let me finish this line of argument. It's very important to educate our people and to enlighten those who are being misguided, being misinformed, ill-informed, or totally uninformed. If you analyze, you will see that no election since 1999 has thrown up such surprises as this. And conversely, ironically, this is an election where in the Southeast, the Labour Party had recorded over 90-something% of votes. Now, let us analyze very well. Labour Party, the candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, belonged to the PDP, was in the PDP. Atiku Abubakar of PDP still is in PDP. Kwankwaso of NNP belonged or was in the PDP. So this PDP as a party was fractionalized into three. Even as a single party, they could not win the election in 2015 and 2019. Now, how in good conscience can you now expect the same party that's now been fractionalized into three, Labour, PDP, and NNP, to now win the election individually? When they were one with their whole strength, they could not win. Now that they are fragmented and fractionalized into three, how do you expect, how does any reasonable person expect that he will now win when he now has less strength? It's not possible.
Mr. Alake,
it is an illusion. It's delusional and hallucinatory to expect anybody to win such an election. Whereas APC and the candidate of the APC had remained
Alake, just a minute,
really
because you're speaking
solid,
to the issue, and I don't want
concrete.
to lose this line of thought. You were talking about earlier a shift in the electoral map, and you were talking about how the APC also lost Lagos. When you look at the results, each of the top three contenders had about 12 states each. Has the APC learned his lesson from the presidential election, and how do you think you will fare in the gubernatorial election?
Is going to fare better in the gubernatorial election. Why? Because we are going to plug the loopholes. Loopholes that have been identified. The rigging, the monumental rigging that took place, whether in Lagos or in the southeast, or in other areas where the Labour Party made inroads. Those loopholes and leakages will be plugged. That's one. Two, even in Lagos, the eyes of the people have now been opened by the result of last Saturday's election. It is now dawned on the people of Lagos that they are not about to lose or give away their heritage, which is an impossibility, an unimaginable phenomenon elsewhere, particularly in the southeast part of the country. It's impossible for anybody to go there and beat his chest to say he wants to rule another people or to lay claim to the land of somebody else. That particular result of last Saturday has opened the eyes of Lagosians, the indigenes, and all the other people who have become really very conscious of what is going on, what is happening. And that will never be permitted again. So a lot of lessons have been learned. A lot of things have been put in place. Checks to plug loopholes, to prevent the kind of fraud that happened last week. It will not happen again.
All right, so I want to again go back to the speech of the president-elect. He was addressing the young people in that particular speech, and I just want to play it. Let our viewers take a listen.
To you, the people, especially the youth, I will work day and night. I will work to the utmost best of my ability to make Nigeria better. For this to be a victory at all, it cannot simply be a victory for one man or even one party. It must become a victory for all Nigerians who are committed to a greater society. I know many did not vote for me, and you are disappointed that your candidate is not where I stand now. I understand. You hurt. Your anger, disappointment. I extend the embrace and comfort of one family member to another. This great project called Nigeria beckons to us all. It is bigger and more important than any partition divide. To my supporters, I ask you to continue to have faith in the mission that we have articulated. Though those who didn't support me, I ask that you not allow the disappointment of this moment to keep you from realizing the historic national progress we can make by working together.
That was the president-elect speaking there. Mr. Alake, I know you know that we have a very young population. A huge percentage of the population in Nigeria are young people, but young people who feel aggrieved that over the years, the benefits of governance have not trickled down, that they feel neglected, they are not being prepared for any leadership in any form in the country. How inclusive will the administration of the president-elect be, especially for young people?
Oh, well, I can tell you, going by the Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's antecedents, the youth don't have anything to fear from his administration. Even in 1999, when he formed his cabinet, we were not old people that were in that cabinet at that time. We were very young. He himself was young. Not only that, up till today, he is noted everywhere as a foremost talent hunter, irrespective of age, class, creed, status, whatever. He has no restrictions in terms of where you come from or what kind of religion you practice. No. His watchword is merit. As long as you have the capacity and capability to deliver, you've got the knowledge, he will bring you on board. Even in this campaign, in our campaign council, there's so many youngsters there. Even working with him as personal aides today, I can tell you there are several youngsters working with him. So that will go to show that he is a man who embraces the youth. And on top of that, through his action plan, he has a lot of goodies for the youth. And he has said some of these things. For instance, in the area of education, which is largely populated by our youth, he has said that he's going to introduce the loan system. When some of us were in school, back in the day, there was a federal loan system for indigent people in school, in the universities at that time. Along the line, this was cancelled, it faded. He says he's going to reintroduce it. He's going to bring in a credit system into the economy to allow people, young graduates coming, emanating from our colleges, our higher institutions, to be able to settle down. And that also is a double-pronged mechanism, not just to ensure the immediate welfare of the youngsters that are emerging from schools, because with the credit system, they can have an apartment, they can get a car, they can be comfortable, rather than the current cash system where you have to pay in bulk for everything. You want to buy a car, you have to pay in bulk. You want to get an apartment, you have to pay in bulk and all that. That not only cushions the harsh economic effect on the youth, is even going to stem the inclination to corruption. Because why do people also have or develop these corruptive tendencies? Because everybody likes the good life. You want to be able to afford the basic necessities of life. But if you have to pay cash for everything, it's difficult for any young graduate to be able to amass such cash to afford. So if there is a credit system in place, it really makes life a lot easier for the youth and for the society at large. because the proclivity to think of corruption, to be corrupt, or to be fraudulent will significantly reduce or abate. So apart from himself being a lover of the youth, he has very many, good plans that he will put in place in his administration for the youth. And I tell you, number 3 is that he is a very, very notable financial expert. And he has demonstrated that amply in Lagos. Now, he is going to plug the loopholes and leakages in the financial system of Nigeria today, and the revenue will increase. With the increase in revenue, he is going to create industrial hubs in almost every geopolitical zone of the nation. Now, manufacturing is going to be enhanced. Industrial hubs will be, all of this will create jobs, which would really absorb the teeming masses of the youths who are currently either languishing in unemployment or underemployment or such things. So he has a lot of goodies for the youths, apart from being a lover of youth himself. And these are so many other avenues that the youth's anger would really be assuaged. And again, I personally have a word for the youth. And my word for the youth, which I also always tell them whenever I come across a lot of them, either at lectures, symposia, and different fora, that you also do not wait until a job is created for you. Our youth should also, and I'm seeing that in the IT sector, creativity. Their creativity is flourishing. These days, we have gone past the era of somebody coming out of school and just waiting to be employed by either government or some officers. You have to really bring out your creative ingenuity to the fore. And believe you me, I do not know in the world how many people that became extremely very wealthy through salary jobs. Not many.
And Mr. Alake, a lot of people believe that
of people
the federal government
at the very
has to
top
create
of the economic ladder. That
many people believe that the federal government has to create that enabling environment.
By the
we'll see how the Ashwaju presidency will create that environment.
Internal creative energy and flourished and became very successful. I would also recommend the same thing to our youth. Secondly, I would recommend that the youth also do a lot of knowledge acquisition. Now, today's youths have a lot of access to information. There are so many gadgets through which they can get information. You have the
like I'm afraid
social media,
I have to
Instagram,
leave it there.
internet, Facebook, all kinds of things, all kinds of gadgets and avenues to access information. But there's very little knowledge. Because a large percentage of the youth
I'm afraid
use these gadgets for entertainment.
We do have to leave it
rather
there.
than
And we understand that
the
president-elect,
I would strongly recommend
has
that
now
our youth use these gadgets to acquire knowledge.
I'm not sure Mr. Alake can hear me.
And through the acquisition of knowledge, they get into self-development rather than wasting time on the frivolities from these gadgets. And that has been one of the banes of the youth's political development, because they do not have information. A large percentage of them that became uninformed were hoodwinked and their gullibility exploited by some politicians, presenting themselves to be the messiahs that they are not to the youth. If only the youth did a little bit of sleuthing and backgrounding or research into the antecedents and records of the personalities or politicians, they would discover that they are.
Mr. Alake, I'm not sure you can hear me. Okay, we have to leave it there. We understand that the president-elect has moved into the Defense House, who will be monitoring events leading to the inauguration on May 29th. And also response reactions by the opposition and political parties. And I'm sure we'll have you over and over again to address some of these issues. Thank you so much for talking to us, Advisor, Media and Public Affairs to the APC PCC, Mr. Dele Alake.